Danny Gilfillan for Boxing News, delighted to be joined by Paul Smith here in Manchester. Paul, you're here. I feel like every time I speak to you with Steve Clarke, which is a good sign, plenty of activity on another big show this Saturday with Queensberry. What sort of progression are we hoping to see from Steve Clarke? I was there at Altrincham last time out and got some good rounds under his belt there. What are we hoping for on Saturday night?
More of the same. We obviously want to try and get stoppages, but at this stage in his career against these journeymen, they're shutting up shop and they're hard to prize open and hard to break down, and they're there to give fighters rounds, and we're getting the rounds. And I'm okay with Steve getting rounds because obviously the way he fights, his engine's unbelievable. Once he gets into the 8 and 10 round fights, this was supposed to be an 8, but the show was full, so we have to do a 6. But once he gets into the 8 and 10 rounds, his engine will really come into play, and he'll start drowning kids a bit later on in fights where he's got a good work rate and an unbelievable engine on him. So it's just learning and progression. You know, he's coming on slowly but surely and steadily, and he's coming at the right pace. He hasn't had any soft or very easy touches. Maybe one where it was just a last minute thing, but he's on these big shows. He's selling a lot of tickets. He's building up a big fan base, and he's coming along just as we want. Me and my brother Stephen, who trains him.
What weight do you see Steve's future at long term? Because I noticed it was billed as a super middleweight contest, but I think he came in at like 161, something like that. Where do you see the future for him?
No, he's had a litre of water before bed last night and woke up and lost probably a pound and a half since he's got here. So he's doing the weight easy. He can do 160 easy middleweight at the moment, and if he fills out and he stays at that, he'll be a big, strong middleweight. A few years down the line, who knows? But for now, he's well and truly middleweight, and he'll make it comfortably. He's looking really good on the scales every time he weighs in, and he's filling out and getting stronger every time he fights also.
Well, light heavyweight's very much the theme of Saturday night. Main event, of course, Joshua Buatsi, Zach Parker. Joshua, bigger favourite, the big favourite going into the contest. Zach Parker feels like it's make or break for him. You know, he's been on these Queensberry shows for a while, and we've yet to see that breakout performance. Josh, of course, someone you'll have watched a lot of, given his last opponent. What's your read on that fight?
I've seen things in Parker. I don't want to criticise him. I don't know him well enough to criticise him and have a go at him, but I've seen things in him in his last few fights where I think he's at the end of the road, me personally. He might prove me wrong, I can't see it, but I think Buatsi is a quality fighter. Obviously, the fight everyone's seen with my brother, and it's well documented. He was very good that night as well, but he just come up against my brother, and probably what I still think is probably the fight of the year so far for British fighters. Great fight to watch from so close to the ring, and the man who I really respect a lot in Buatsi. He's strong, he's fit, he's game, he's got a very good boxing brain on him, he's spiteful. He's an all-round good fighter and top-level fighter. I think he's a couple of levels above Parker, with no disrespect to Parker at all. Parker's had a good career, but I think from what I've seen, I might be wrong, as I said time and again, I've got no problem being wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times, but what I saw in the last couple of fights is signs of aging and signs of coming towards the end, and I think that might come into play for Buatsi, and once he starts landing and finding it home for the shots, I think we'll see probably a very good performance from Buatsi in a bounce-back fight from his first loss, which was fight of the year, again, as I've said. Absolutely,
and on Callum, it sounds like we're getting closer to this David Morrell fight, been talked about for months on end. Is that the impression you're getting, that a deal is close to being done for that fight?
Yeah, again, as I just say, I don't know, but what we're hearing is that it's looking like January, February, and it's going to be almost close to being done, but I just wait for the phone call. But listen, you've got to understand how Callum is. His fight will be announced on social media before he rings us to tell us, and we're all like, nice one for telling me, and he's like, oh, I forgot, thought you knew, sorry. Like, he's half asleep at the best of times anyway, so it'll probably be announced on social media before we know. But yeah, as of yet, no, nothing. But as of yet, they're looking like it's looking like January, Feb.
What's your read on David Morrell's opponent? Last time out, a lot of people thought he was a bit fortunate against Kataev, who good fighter in his own right, Olympic medalist. Not really, in many people's opinion, reached the heights as a pro people thought he would, since moving particularly up to light heavyweight. Very talented fighter, Cuban. What's your assessment of him?
No, he's good. He's a very good fighter, good strong fighter, and one that Callum will have to be ready for. I agree with what you're saying on his last fight. It was shown everywhere, obviously, and I think Callum on his day, and he's got to have his day, but Callum on his day is a match and for anyone out there, and I think it's a fight Callum should be winning, but it's a tough fight, and it's one of them fights that he might not get the credit for, because if he beats him, then it's just a relatively inexperienced youngish Cuban, you know what I mean, who's only been around for a while with fights in the teens, let's say. But if he wins, it's a good win, and it's a very good win at that stage, and the people inside that say, no, how good a win that will be. So Callum's just got to focus on himself and just keep winning and hope that something happens with these belts. But he's interim champion of the world. If anything happens, we're seeing what's going on with Usyk at the minute. I was talking a lot about it last week. I did Parker Wardley for TalkSport, and I'm starting to explain. I'm on a show on TalkSport on a Monday. I'm having people firing back in the comments not understanding what I mean. Like, Joseph Parker was in a mandatory position to fight Usyk, and he's got the WBO interim title. If Usyk doesn't choose to fight now and vacates them belts, Fabio Wardley is a two-time champion. He's a unified world champion, a heavyweight world champion. People don't understand that, and that's what Joseph Parker's just given away by giving Wardley that opportunity. And fair play to him for giving him the opportunity. I do get that, but he didn't have to give him that opportunity, and it's not like the Usyk fight wasn't going to happen or the belts won't be dealt with in a manner by the time that he had to wait. He wouldn't have waited too long for that opportunity. So it's a similar case in the light heavyweight division. Callum's choosing to fight against a risky opponent, but he has an interim belt. He has a WBO interim belt, and the next time that belt's 4-4, if it's not Beterbiev-Bivol rematch, it has to be Callum, obviously, because he's the mandatory. So it's an important fight for Morrell, obviously, which he'll be taken seriously, but it's an even more important fight for Callum because he's interim champion and he's got to keep that belt what he's won.
You mentioned Parker Wardley, I'll come on to that then. Is that sort of the difference in a manager's hat and a fighter's hat? Because Joseph Parker, as you say, got loads of credit for taking the fight, as you didn't need to, but should there maybe have been wiser heads prevailing around him?
Possibly, but it's not for me to criticise a management team at all. Listen, I understand why he's took it. I wouldn't have took it myself, but that's me speaking as a retired fighter who'd give anything to go back and do it. When I was fighting, I'd have fought anyone and anyone at the time. I get it, but I just think it was he bit off a little bit more than he could chew in picking Wardley as an opponent. He probably thought it was going to be a little bit easier, and I'm seeing people saying, oh, well, you know, that's what we want, fighters fighting the best. That's fine, I hope the fans are happy, but Joseph Parker's going to wake up Sunday morning without his interim title, and he's lost his lottery ticket and it's gone, because he was guaranteed to fight Usyk next, or defend his WBO title as a full legitimate world title, as a two-time heavyweight champion of the world. So, you know, what you want to do, keep fans happy. When you're retired in 5 years' time, then fans aren't paying your bills at home. You've got bills coming in, and then fans aren't going to be, you know, worrying about your next job after it. And I'm not criticising fans, by the way. They're the lifeblood of the sport. We need the fans, obviously, but we also need the boxers, and we need the boxers healthy. And the job as a manager, and the job as someone who's advising a fighter, is always to pick the best fights that you can for your fighter, for the most money that you can get for your fighter, to keep your fighter as a champion, or to make your fighter a champion. And he's just lost an interim title, and I'm not criticising him whatsoever. I love Joe Parker. I'm not criticising Andy Lee or the management team. I'm not criticising any of them at all with regards to Joe Parker. It's one of them things. It's just a gamble that seemed a safe gamble. I thought it was going to be a safe gamble. I picked Parker before the fight. I thought Parker would have stopped him late. When it started, the first round, I definitely thought it was a safer bet. Even when Wardley came into it after 3 or 4 rounds, I still thought Parker had the upper hand and was the levels or two above him. But that's boxing, that's heavyweight boxing as well. Well done to Wardley, he's done unbelievable. And he's now in the driving seat, and he's in an unbelievable position where once these belts get fragmented, or Usyk calls his next fight, it's going to be Fabio Wardley, and he's absolutely smashed life now.
Yeah, I'm sure the goodwill of the fans isn't too much consolation to Joseph Parker now.
Yeah, listen, I just think he'll be gutted, and he'll probably be... I said on a YouTube video that I've done, I'm now officially one of them YouTube knobheads.
Saw that actually, I was going to plug it at the end. Not knobheads, yeah, come on, I'm right here.
I'm one of them YouTube lads with my own channel, and I'm just doing it, but I just thought I'm doing a lot of analysis and analyst stuff, and I'm breaking down fights at TalkSport, and I'm enjoying my TalkSport stuff, but I've always wanted to do it and have my own little channel where I can have my own little rants and say whatever I want and break down things what I want to break down. And I said on there, he'll probably be kicking himself a little bit, because it was a gamble that he didn't really need to take, and in the fight he took gambles that he didn't really need to take. He was well ahead on points, but he still kept going for the knockout, and he's been caught by a massive puncher. And Wardley's absolutely, you know, done the job on him, and rightly so. And I'm so happy for Wardley as well, by the way. He's a nice lad. I don't know anyone that doesn't like him. He wears his heart on his sleeve in and out the ring, and he's a good fighter. He's a good, honest heart fighter, and that story's great, from white collar boxing to now being, you know, two-time interim unified champion.
Just on the stoppage, any problems with it for you?
On the night when I was there, I didn't, and I'm watching it, and I saw Parker just sag a little bit on the ropes when he looked fatigued and exhausted. And on the night, no, I didn't have too many complaints, and neither did Parker's team or Parker himself. Watching it back, I think it's a little bit premature, but as I said on TalkSport, as I say now, I would always rather a premature fight than a little bit too late. I'd rather it be stopped early than stopped too late every day of the week.
What next for Joseph Parker? I saw him on Ara Helwani, and he's willing to jump back in with anyone. Was mentioning Moses Ataima, Filip Hrgovic, early days, but what route, say you're managing him, would you take him down?
I bet you he's willing to jump in with anyone else because he's at the back of the queue now, and that's my whole point in all of this, what I'm saying about it. He will jump in with absolutely anyone now because he has to. It's before this fight. He didn't need to jump in with anyone. He didn't have to get in, excuse me, and fight anyone at all. He was in the driving seat, and now he's back of the queue. And that's what I'm saying to people. That's what people don't quite understand. As a career, it's a short one. And now he's going to have to wait and hope and pray that Wardley gives him a rematch, or he's going to have to find someone else who's on the way up, maybe, which is a tougher fight then, to try and get himself back in that queue to have a shot at the big ones.
And Fabio Wardley, it could well be Usyk next, as you say, from white collar to fighting one of the best heavyweights of the generation. But do you give him much chance?
No, but who's going to listen to me after I gave him not much chance against Parker? I picked Clarke to beat him in the second fight. I thought after the first fight, I thought Clarke looked like he was just... I thought Clarke would find a way more than Wardley would find a way. So there's 3 fights I've been wrong on Wardley, so I probably won't back against him again, but it's on his hand to Usyk. I'm obviously going to pick Usyk in that fight, but he's proved me wrong time again. I've got no shame and no problem in admitting I'm wrong. I picked what I picked. I'm not one of them who will try and blend it and hide it. But he's done great to be where he is, and I do say I had this debate a little bit with Curtis Woodhouse in a nice friendly way because I like him and I get on with him. Curtis Woodhouse, Fabio Wardley, Scott Quigg, a couple of others, it's exceptions to the rule. It's not the norm. The norm is the old amateur setup, and that's what produces champion after champion. Like you mentioned, David Morrell, Callum, anyone, most of the fighters on Spill Buatsi. But every now and then that will happen, and it's brilliant to see, and it's great to see because you don't have to start when you're 11 and go to the amateur setup. You can come from white collar boxing, which Wardley's done. The laugh and joke about it all is, imagine the face on the fella who turns up for a white collar fight and got matched up with Fabio Wardley. That's the funny one, isn't it? But yeah, all jokes aside, I think he's done brilliant. I'm buzzing for the lads, I really am.
I had a white collar a few years ago, so maybe there's still hope.
There you go.
Just want to stick with the heavyweight division. Paul, it sounds like Dylan Whyte, Derek Chisora 3 could be on the cards. This Jarrell Miller fight looks to have fallen through. Both men, I think it's fair to say, coming towards the end. Do you have a favourite in that fight? Is there one way you lean?
No, and coming to the end is an understatement. I'm not having a go at them. I've got no problem with the fight because they're both at the same stage in the career. If one of them wasn't, then I would have a problem. I wanted to see Chisora retire a few fights ago. After watching Whyte's performance, I know it probably was, he'll say there was some issues there, but that's he's been sort of fed to the young lion coming through, and I felt it before him in that fight. I like Dylan Whyte, I like Derek Chisora. I think they're both good lads. I get on well with them both. I've always got on well with Dylan Whyte, and Chisora is round the bend. I had some good nights with him, and I think he's a nice fella. But yeah, I've got no problem with the fight because it's both at the same stage in the career. I think momentum's probably in Derek's favour, but obviously the last time they were in the ring, it ended up bad for Derek against Dylan, and Dylan knows that and Derek knows that, so it's a proper 50-50, I think.
And in the theme of repeated fights, there's serious traction around Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao too. I think Manny over at the IBA event in the Philippines confirmed he's in pretty deep negotiations. I think Floyd's 48, Manny 46. Is that similar in that they're both at the back end, past the back end? Do you have any problem with that fight, or?
I think they were on the back end when they actually fought, and that was about 5 years too late. Listen, if it's an exhibition, I've got no problem with it. If it's an actual genuine fight, then they're both at the same stage in their lives, but they're both dangerous, and they're both playing dangerous games, coming back to boxing at the age they're at. It's a young man's sport. I'm younger than the both of them, and I don't want to be coming back to boxing. I've just had a surgery 2 weeks ago on my shoulders to try and remove a bit of arthritis. It's a bad thing. It's good, not good for your health, overstaying your welcome in boxing. I heard this morning that the fight's done, and we're looking at April time, I think, but don't quote me on that.
Well, the rumours are that it'll be Netflix, and just as a wider point, it seems Netflix and the big broadcasters, like no disrespect to the Zone, have more interest in these sort of fights, the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson's, the Jake Paul, Gervonta Davis. Is that concerning for boxing, that we can't seem to generate fights that interest the big wigs, and they're having to claw back to faded fighters?
It's a tough one. I'm trying to think of an example. Callum Buatsi wouldn't have sold anywhere on Netflix, but it will on DAZN. Boxing fans know what a good fight that is. The average public won't. The average public would rather see Jake Paul against Chuck Liddell, and they'll buy it, and they'll buy the life out of it, and they'll make sure to tune in and watching it. But against two top unbeaten fighters, let's say Batavia and Bivol when they fought for the first time. General public aren't really bothered about that, but boxing fans like us are glued to it. I would watch that 7 days a week if that was on. I would want to see every time they fight. I want to be there and watch it because it was a great fight, and there always will be good fights. It's not just boxing that sells nowadays, is it, unfortunately? And I'm not saying unfortunately, because listen, if it brings eyes to boxing, then I'm for it as long as it's not too ridiculous. But You know how it is. People want to see novelty. People want to see gimmicks, and they want to see people that they know fighting and doing other stuff that they don't normally do. What's out of the comfort zone. So I'm not surprised the fact like that's going to sell. I'm not surprised like that it's going to be on Netflix. And I think anyone like Netflix in boxing is great for boxing.
Just a couple of quick predictions, Paul, and I'll let you go. Eubank Benn creeping around the corner now. Repeat the revenge.
I've said repeat from the minute it was made, but I just think the way Conor Benn hurt him in that fight and could hurt him, I think Ben might have enough in there to do it, and I just think it's just because I just think Eubank's done, and I've said this since he fought my brother Liam. My brother Liam was just in that bad shape with his back that he couldn't do that in the second fight, but I think he's been done since then, and I think he's been ready there for the taking, and I think Ben should have learned enough in the first fight to be able to do that. I do think Eubank might be a bit better, but I still think if you're getting caught by Conor Benn and getting hurt by Conor Benn when you're a big middleweight and you've been in there with big middleweights and super middleweights like Groves and everyone else and not being budged, then there's a problem, and the problem I think is he's probably had better days. But it was an entertaining fight the first time, and it's one I'll be watching this time because I think it'll be another good fight this time.
And one of the pick of the bunch on the November 22nd card, Brian Norman Jr. against Devin Haney. Devin stepping up to welterweight for the first time. Big ask on the face of it against Brian Norman, who's very much on an upward trajectory. What's your read on that?
I think it might be a big ask, as you said, a bit of a step too much. So I'll side with Norman on that one. He's an unbelievable fighter, isn't he?
Cheers, Paul. Thanks very much. Let you get on.
Thank you.